In a lot of ways, this game yesterday represented the Giants' season as a whole. They had a young player in Kyle Harrison make his major league debut, and it was a truly exciting and impressive performance. I don't want to say blown away, but I have a lot to say about the positives coming out of that performance. However, in the end, despite the positivity stemming from the youth that has come up, disappointment in the end. And Camilo Doval, what the heck are you doing? Why on earth was he not throwing his slider?
You are Locked On Giants, your daily San Francisco Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Giants, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. My name is Ben Kaspick, and on this show we provide daily episodes Monday through Friday, talking about the San Francisco Giants in a way that's data-driven and rational, but also simple, passionate, and accessible to all. I'm a former contributor for the baseball statistics and analysis websites Beyond the Box Score and Rotographs. I have been podcasting about the Giants since 2015, and I'm a lifelong fan. Thank you for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts, including YouTube. Check us out there, and also please hit that subscribe button or that follow button wherever it is that you're listening. And coming up on today's show, sadly, we can't just gush about Kyle Harrison for 30 minutes. We're going to have to also talk about the fact that the Giants not only lost this game, but lost this game in gut-wrenching fashion, and not only lost this game in gut-wrenching fashion, but also we're getting late in the season here. It's late August, and these games matter a lot, and the Giants, for the first time in a long time, fell out of a playoff position. And for the first time in at least 2 months, Fangraphs has their playoff odds a little bit below, but below 50%. So more likely than not, they don't make it, according to Fangraphs. And for a while, I mean, they were up at 80% like a week ago. And so they've just... We'll get into all that. I want to start with Kyle Harrison because of all the players who have debuted, first of all, I mean, nobody saw, maybe the team saw it coming, but Patrick Bailey making the kind of impact that he's made, cementing himself as the clear catcher of the present and the future. That has been the best development of the 2023 season for the San Francisco Giants, hands down. And we've gotten a taste of a lot of other players, and probably next on the list for me, without having the full list kind of pulled up, would be Luis Matos. I am excited about the future for him. He's got things to work on. He's 21 years old, and you don't expect a perfect finished product the moment these guys arrive at the major leagues. But based on what I saw, which wasn't that much, what did he pitch? 3 1/3, 3 2/3? I don't have the box score pulled up stupidly, but actually, yes, I do. 3 1/3. But it wasn't about the final line. Some people came at me like when I said he had an excellent start, excellent debut. It's not just about the final line. It's a 5.40 ERA. If you're just gonna go by, oh, that's a bad ERA. This is where I'm a numbers guy, and I'm gonna tell you, watch the game, because if you watch the game, Harrison was electric. His fastball was just electric and kind of even unhittable in the strike zone, not relying on chase. He did get some chases up out of the zone, but we're talking about some really good Phillies hitters here and some really good right-handed hitters. I mean, oddly, Harrison, I think, gave up all of his hits against left-handed hitters, which is very odd. And no, in his minor league career, I actually looked at the last 2 years, but this year specifically in AAA, no, he doesn't have reverse splits or anything. So it was kind of just a probably fluke result that you won't see continue with lefties doing better against him. But this is a team with some really good right-handed hitters, including Trea Turner, he's one of the best right-handed hitters in baseball. Nick Castellanos, one of the best right-handed hitters in baseball. Alec Boehm, really good. JT Realmuto, really good. And those are kind of the righties there. But that's, and also you've got a face like a Schwarber and a Bryce Harper. It's a good lineup. And he threw a lot of fastballs in the zone that the hitters simply did not even make contact on. And when you're he just turned 22 years old, like this month, maybe even like a week ago. He's 22. And so when I'm saying like Patrick Bailey, best story of the year, Matos and his potential is up there, but I'm like firmly pushing Kyle Harrison, at least saying he has the potential to join Bailey, perhaps surpass him in the best case scenario. We're talking about not that much time left, although a possible postseason run is not out of the question either. But I mean, all I needed to see was three and a third innings to see that every time he goes out there, assuming he's healthy, assuming he can throw strikes, which he did, and that was a big key for him, 66% strikes, struck out over 30% of the hitters he faced. Major league average is like 22%. He walked, I think it was like 6 or 7% of the hitters he faced, which is pretty normal. He gave up, maybe even a little better than normal, he gave up a home run to Bryce Harper, joining 211 other pitchers who have given up a home run to Bryce Harper. But yeah, all I needed to see was 3 1/3 to know that every time this guy goes out there, he is going to give the Giants a chance to win, as long as he's throwing strikes, right? Like if he just completely just can't throw a strike, then he's not going to give him a chance to win. But I guess what I'm trying to say is I immediately put him as one of the best 2 or 3 pitchers on the Giants right now, immediately, right away. And so that's a big deal, especially for a team that doesn't have traditional starting pitchers. He has, I know they pulled him after only 65 pitches. But the thing is, and I feel like this kind of gets missed on some, is that he got hurt in July. And so he's only made 2 or 3 starts after missing quite a bit of time in July, like 3 weeks or so, maybe more like 4. And so, yeah, he's not just going to come out here throwing 100 pitches. And they have been clear that the plan all along was to build him up slowly and methodically as the year progressed so that by the end of the year, he could be throwing higher pitch counts. And so, no, I don't think this is like they just view Harrison as a guy who's only ever going to throw 65 pitches in a game. Look at Logan Webb, right? Like they let him go eventually, and now he'll go 100 plus if he's on. And so I think Harrison will eventually get to that point. We'll see when, but don't worry about that, in my opinion. So anyway, I have nothing but positive things to say. Like I said, he did give up a home run. He did give up some hard contact, but like, I don't know, eye test for me. Like he passes it with flying colors. That dude is a legitimate possible front of the rotation arm. And that's the scouting report. It's not just me saying that. Scouts view him that way. That's why he is considered the Giants' best prospect, the best left-handed pitching prospect in baseball. And, you know, many consider him a potential front of the rotation arm. And that's what I saw. I saw a potential front of the rotation arm last night. And that is hugely exciting. So, unfortunately, that's not the only thing we have to talk about today. The Giants, man, it was a very like significant loss. It really set them back because it was a game they should have won and they didn't win. And for me, it kind of came down to Camilo Doval inexplicably refusing to throw his slider. We will get into it in just a minute. And before we do, this episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. For a championship team, it's all about making sure every player is a perfect fit. It's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right, definitely. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure that every part you need fits right the first time around. Just add your ride to My Garage and look for the green check to know the part will fit or your money back. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, that is a lot of parts, you will be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. All right, as promised, Camilo Doval, what on earth were you thinking? What were you thinking? I love Camilo Doval. Tranquilo Camilo. I love Doval, but I was screaming about this while I was watching, or not, I was by myself. So if I was screaming, I'd really be kind of a lunatic. I wouldn't put it past me though. But in this particular case, thinking, screaming in my head. And then I also tweeted about it immediately after the game, and it made me feel kind of validated that Gabe Kapler essentially echoed exactly what I was saying after I said it. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Everydayers, tomorrow on the show, we're going to be talking about, can the Giants win a game? Michael Lorenzen, the hired gun who threw a no-hitter recently for the Phillies, but I think they faced him before, and they kind of roughed him up in Detroit. So hopefully they can do that again. Alex Cobb on the mound. Giants play the Phillies today at 1:05 Pacific. So you might be hearing this episode after that, and I apologize for that. 1:05 Pacific, and you can catch every pitch of the Giants' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search Giants. So, what are we talking about again? Oh yeah, Camilo Doval, and how I'm screaming at myself. So basically, an ominous start when you're up by a run in the ninth and you hit the first batter, a walk or a hit by pitch. It's just so ominous every single time. And so right away, stress is coming. There was an at-bat then he got the next hitter to fly out. So it's like, okay, once you did that, it's like you're a pitch away. A sinker, which he ended up throwing a ton of, hit to, the shortstop or the second baseman, double play, game over, something like that. But to Brandon Marsh, a left-handed hitter, he kind of left a fastball up in the zone, and Marsh singled to center. So suddenly it's first and third, and I actually I know that Doval only threw one slider out of 19 pitches in the outing. And I don't know if you know this, but the slider has been historically Doval's best pitch. A lot of people always used to question why he didn't throw his 100+ mile an hour fastball more, and I was always yelling about it's because the slider gets much better results. And sure enough, this season the league is hitting 146 with a 232 slugging percentage against the slider. When they swing, they don't even make contact 49% of the time. So if you just throw a slider and get a swing, 50-50 chance they're going to miss it, basically. There's more factors than that, but essentially that's kind of what that means. And he threw one slider the whole inning, and he threw 19 pitches. And I wasn't particularly thinking about it until the Trea Turner at-bat. So I could go back and look at all the other at-bats. There was a Kyle Schwarber at-bat where there was a pitch like right down the middle called a ball that led to a 2-0 count that led to an intentional walk. So who knows how the inning plays out differently if that pitch is called correctly. It was right down the middle of the plate. Patrick Bailey stood up because the runner was going from first, but still the umpire, you got to see it. Or if you can't see it, then maybe it's not a job humans should do. if there's a pitch literally right in front of you, but you don't see it because a catcher has the potential to block you, then maybe human beings aren't the ones who should be calling balls and strikes. When the cameras, the Hawkeye, can see it just fine, and in fact perfectly. So anyway, there's my little rant of the day about that. Like, who knows? If that's called a strike correctly, it was clearly a strike. Maybe they don't intentionally walk Schwarber, and maybe he strikes out, and maybe the game goes totally different. But once it was a 2-0 count, like the count, this is a good example of why the count matters so much. 2-0 count becomes far more dangerous than an 0-0 count. Like, if you give a hitter an automatic 2-0 count, they just become like Babe Ruth, like the count is king. And that's why I care so much about strike zone calls. But so they walk. I thought it was a little risky because Doval was wild. He hit a batter. And if you load the bases there, which they did on purpose, then a walk or a hit by pitch ties the game, right? So anyway, Trea Turner comes up. They go sinker, cutter, sinker, 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 sinker. And that final sinker, a line drive up the middle, off the glove of Doval, past Thairo Estrada, into center field, 2-run score, game over. And here's the thing. All these pitches are like middle in, right? He wasn't trying to, maybe he was at some point trying to throw away, but I'm pretty sure every pitch was middle in. And I kind of get the logic of the sinker, which is get a ground ball, but like Trea Turner's one of the fastest players in the game. And so you're probably not going to get a double play against him. You might, but you might not. And I don't know, the plan would probably be to come home with a ground ball. But if the plan is to come home with a ground ball and get just the out at home and then let Turner, because you won't be able to double him up, get to first, then it's no different than a strikeout. So why the obsession with the sinker there? I don't get it. And by the way, the sinker, it gets a lot of ground balls, way more than its other pitches. But the league is hitting 314 against the sinker versus, like I said, 146 against the slider. But beyond that is just as a hitter, if you're just seeing the same speed and the same location over and over and over and over, not only do you suddenly have probably a better chance of making solid contact if you see another one, but you're also just so set up for a slider away because it looks like it's in the middle and then it just takes a left turn. And I watch baseball all the time, and I find myself watching a lot of Phillies games because they're in the wild card race, and I watch their games hoping that they lose. And Trea Turner has not had a good season. It's been a struggle for him, and they're constantly talking about how one of his big issues has been a lot of chase on breaking balls off the plate away. And that is Doval's best pitch, and it was completely set up, and he just didn't throw it. And so my explanation was like, he must not have had a feel for it. Like maybe in the bullpen, he just wasn't able to command it. Whatever the case was, I assumed there was a legitimate excuse, and there may have been. But there's this Gabe Kapler kind of quote after the game that I'm scrolling down to try to find because it's worth finding and reading to you. Here it is. I don't know who wrote this. Somebody sent it to me on Twitter, so I don't know the author. I apologize to the author, but it says, quote, Kapler sounded frustrated with Doval's inning, largely because Doval threw his slider only once. Often, Doval gets slider happy, but this time he shook away from it. Quote from Kapler, one thing we're seeing is that Camilo is using one pitch frequently, end quote, Kapler said. Quote from Kapler, one of the conversations that we've had with him, and this is an ongoing conversation or ongoing discussion, is just to really trust Pat Bailey behind the plate. in this particular case, we're not mixing pitches enough. That's part of the concern right now. End quote. And there you have it. That is exactly what I was saying. And I just don't get it. And to me, like, if you throw, like I said, swings and misses 50% of the time on any slider that Doval throws this year when they swing. But he was so set up for it. He's been susceptible to it. I've seen it with my own eyes. I've heard the Phillies broadcasters talking about it. And all those fastballs in, it just totally sets up a chase away on a slider. It was worth a shot. It wasn't a 3-2 count. It wasn't like, I've got to throw a strike. I've got to throw the pitch that I can command the best. What was it? 0-2? 1-2? Like, it was worth a shot to throw a slider there, and I don't understand it. And not trusting Pat Bailey. And like I said, I love Doval. I don't want to get mad at him, but I'm mad at him. I'm mad at him as you would get mad at a sibling, like a family member. I just don't understand it. And yes, please, for the love of all things that are good in the world, trust Pat Bailey. Kapler very clearly makes it sound like Bailey was calling for the slider and Doval was saying no. So they lost. And to me, that is a reason why. And it was a costly loss. So coming up in just a minute, we'll update you on the standings and also some roster moves. Paul DeJong is on the roster. What was the move they made to get him on? And somebody very important started a rehab assignment. So all of that in just a minute. But first, all right, as promised, we are going to discuss many things, including the Giants' standings, the adding of Paul DeJong to the roster today. He's in the lineup today. And also a rehab assignment. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Everydayers tomorrow. Can the Giants get a win? Alex Cobb on the mound, Michael Lorenzen for the Phillies. It's a big game. You do not want to get swept here. Giants have been pretty good at avoiding sweeps, but if you get swept here, I mean, the morale is going to be low. And then you play the Braves in your next series. Again, the best team in baseball. So they got to step up right now, starting today. Giants play the Phillies today at 1:05 Pacific. You can catch every pitch of the Giants' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search Giants. And so, yes, the Giants have fallen out of playoff position for the first time in a while. They're half a game back of the D-backs and Cubs, and they're tied with Cincinnati, who's also half a game back. And Miami is only half a game behind the Giants. So there's this cluster here of 5 teams separated by one game. Am I reading that right? Yes, one game with the Cubs, D-backs, Giants, Reds, and Marlins. Now, the Giants' run differential is just +1, which is indicative of a 500 team. And so they're kind of fortunate, I think, to be 4 games over 500. And it's very upsetting and disappointing that after last season's 500 season, that right now they're essentially playing like a 500 team. It's unacceptable in my opinion. But where was I going with that? Oh yeah, like I said, Fangraphs has their playoff odds below 50%. However, not by much. Playoff odds, according to Fangraphs, are, as of right now, 47. It keeps changing. It's like they change this every 5 minutes. I don't know why, or like, I don't know. It was like 49 or 48% 20 minutes ago. Now it's 47%, 47.4, which is, not great, but not terrible. But it could all change if you get swept and then you go home and you play poorly against the Braves. You could get buried quickly. And so, yeah, like I said, they were up around 80% not long ago, according to Fangraphs. And so it's very disappointing. All they needed to do was kind of play decently, but they're playing poorly. But there's a lot of season left. It's not September 23rd, it's August 23rd. And so there is time to turn it around. Anyway, Paul DeJong was added to the roster. They DFA'd Johan Camargo, which is slightly surprising. I thought there were some other moves they could have made. certain players in AAA were DFA candidates, and there's a certain player on the Major League 15-day injured list who was a DFA candidate. No, not Mike Yastrzemski or whoever the other obviously not cuttable guy is, who I'm forgetting right now. But there was one, but it was Camargo. It's not a huge deal. Thank you for your service, Johan. He was here a few days. Paul DeJong, we talked about him yesterday, and in order to get Kyle Harrison onto the roster, what did they do? They transferred Mark Mathias to the 60-day IL. That opens up a 40-man spot. Part of the reason I'm surprised by the Camargo move is that Mathias is not going to be available. So let's hope DeJong doesn't get hurt, because, I mean, then maybe it's Tyler Fitzgerald. I don't know. But they also optioned Sean Jelly and Elliot Ramos and reinstated Ryan Walker from the paternity list. So a lot of moves and more coming with John Brebbia and Mitch Haniger starting rehab assignments yesterday. So Haniger went straight to AAA. So he's not far away. And to me, yes, he struggled when he was healthy, but he's a potentially good bat. I mean, I kind of put him in the Michael Conforto mold. They're not totally the same as players, but I think when all is said and done, their kind of offensive value is similar. Conforto's having a somewhat down year by his standards, possibly like between somewhat and significantly down year by his standards, but he's not been terrible. And Haniger has the potential to be good as well. And so could be, like I said, there's baseball left. And for all you know, one of these guys, both of these guys, all, the whole team, they could get red hot in the month of September. And let's hope they do. And Brebbia, I mean, the whole opener thing, he was the best one. He was just like automatic 1, 2, 3 inning as the opener. And it's been a little more shaky with Ryan Walker and Scott Alexander in particular. So, and just regardless of whether he's acting as the opener, John Brebbia is a really good reliever, and it'll be good to have him back. And he started a rehab assignment. Went to the Arizona Complex League to start his, probably so they could kind of manage his work a little bit more. But those guys getting close, those guys coming back will be a help to this team. So it's good news. Anyway, that is all the time we have for today. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Everydayers, tomorrow we will be breaking down this game today. Please win, because they need it. And I don't want to be depressed tomorrow. But one way or the other, I will be here for you tomorrow. Once again, my name is Ben Kaspick. Check me out on Twitter at Ben Kaspick, Kaspick. If you like this show, please consider rating it or leaving a review. It helps me out a lot. So thank you in advance, and thanks to everyone who's done so already. I can't wait to be with you again tomorrow. Go Giants. Thanks again for listening. You are now Locked On Giants.